Pittsburgh Golf Now Par 4 once again live. I'm Matt Gajtka with Zac Weiss. We played golf earlier today, Zach, but somehow we decided to do this over a teleconference. It's a little bit easier to edit and piece together. I'll put it that way. Coming up, we'll talk about not necessarily our round this morning, although that will be a topic of discussion for social media posts down the line on Pittsburgh Golf Now and the Appalachian Golf Alliance, too. So a little teaser there. But we want to discuss our personal golf goals for 2021 and also elicit those from you in the comments section after this. But to get this thing rolling, we haven't spoken to you on a par 4 at least since the Masters was played. We did a Masters preview, of course, which you might recall. But we want to discuss the winner and also the aftermath of the first men's major winner on tour. It's Hideki Matsuyama, 29 years old. Zach, it feels like he's been around for a while, and we didn't talk about him at all in the run-up to it. He's fallen from that initial hype that certainly preceded him when he came over from Japan. I believe you covered his first win stateside, did you not, at Memorial?
I did.
So you got to see him early on, just as that hype train was starting to run up the hill. Then results fell off. His putting has betrayed him over the years, but it certainly didn't at Augusta National a couple of weeks ago. And I'm not saying it's the age of Hideki or it's going to be the year of Hideki, but this feels very much deserved, like a guy who's put in the work to get it over the mountain and to win arguably the most prestigious major and bring it home to a golf-mad nation like Japan.
Well, sure, and harkening back to Matsuyama's maiden victory on the PGA Tour, it was a very nervy one, if I remember correctly, because all these tournaments kind of run together. I believe he was in a playoff with William McGirt, and they both were super nervous. I think he hit a spectator's foot at one point in the playoff, if I remember correctly. He hit his approach on the famed 18th hole off the foot, wide left, and he was nervy, but he was able to calm his nerves down enough to win. And you and I both had the chance to cover the Open at Oakmont a few years back, Matt, and there were questions for some of these golfers, but there was always someone in the Japanese media that always asked a player. It didn't matter if it was Hideki Matsuyama or it didn't matter if it was Jordan Spieth, Dustin Johnson, whomever. Anytime there was a major, they had to get their question in about what do you think of Hideki Matsuyama? Can Hideki Matsuyama win a major? And his contemporaries were always very kind and generous, even though they were being asked the question consistently. But it also was a showing of the pressures that Matsuyama faced as a Japanese golfer that was trying to find success and ultimately achieve a goal of winning the major in the PGA Tour. And this chance finally arose for him. And for as many factors as you see on the golf course between swing thoughts, mental thoughts, weight rooms, really the tournament came down to the 60 minutes that weren't determined on the golf course, and it was the rain delay. And it was a reset button for so many. And it was so weird that of all things on the course, it was him catching his heartbeat, recovering, taking a second to realize his place, and then just relaxing in the car and just taking those 60 minutes in his own thoughts where he was comfortable, away from the pressures of the Japanese media, away from the American media, of which he has Bob Turner to interpret for him, And by doing that, Matsuyama has the pressure of not just facing one press wanting answers, but when he finds success, then he has another press that wants answers too. And a lot of times that's a huge time commitment, a commitment that not many other golfers necessarily have to experience. I mean, sure, if a golfer finds success, what typically happens is they talk to the Sirius XM or the PGA Tour radio person, they'll talk to Golf Channel, they'll talk to Sky Sport, and then usually by that point they're winded talking to Flash or media, whomever might be there that's left on the daily grind on the American side. And by then you're getting canned answers, tired responses. So imagine doing that plus the other additional Japanese responsibilities that Hideki Matsuyama has to endure. It's very, very taxing mentally, just as much physically. And let's not forget, this also is the same Hideki Matsuyama that led after round one of the Players' Championship last year before COVID-19 shut everything down for a period of time on the PGA Tour. So it's kind of nice to see that go full circle. And by no means is Matsuyama a slouch. I mean, he's won Memorial, he's won a WGC, he has been regarded. And if you've noticed throughout the years, that hitch that was at the top of his swing, that gap that everybody knows, is a lot less pronounced now. And it really seems like he's working with his team and he's found something that worked. And it's ironic because really he hasn't necessarily hit the cover off the ball lately. And we talk about form. Matsuyama's form wasn't necessarily the best going into this event. But what he was able to do is he was able to catch that lightning in a bottle. And he was the one that reacted the best to that 60-minute delay on that Saturday rain delay. And from there, Sunday, by no means will he admit that that was his best round of golf. But for him, it was pretty steady golf. And really, for him, it was about not making mistakes because he had earned that substantial enough lead. And there had to be someone to catch him. And there were peaks, there were valleys, there were turns. And by golly, credit to Will Zalatoris for the run that he's been on these last handful of months. And now he's got the girl, and now he's about to be a married man. So congratulations to Will Zalatoris and his now fiance. But just Hideki Matsuyama shine brightest when it mattered most. And it's good for him to wear that green jacket. Just maybe next time when he's about to go on an airplane, maybe he shouldn't have that out in broad daylight.
Yeah, I did see that. Well, seldom do the top 3 or 4 finishers all end up being the top storylines of the Masters, but I think it really was in this case. You have Matsuyama's breakthrough and persevering, all that pressure he gets from his home nation. It's support too, but it's pressure. And his previous contemporaries, like for instance Ryo Ishikawa, couldn't deliver on that. But Matsuyama, the ball striking has always been there, and he added the putting in Augusta this year, pardon me, to pull out the win. But you also had Zalatoris, like you said, a guy who doesn't even have, which we learned many times on the broadcast, but it still bears mentioning, still not a full member on the PGA Tour, a player who was ranked in the thousands a couple of years ago. Not that he was a slouch coming up in Oklahoma, but at the same point of it, it was certainly a surprise to see him piece together all these great results before the Masters. But by the time we got to the Masters, it wasn't that much of a surprise. That being said, a major stage is certainly different, and he delivered there. And then Xander Schauffele, too, which that's been a running storyline here. He's gotten close in a couple of majors. You'll recall he was right there when Tiger nearly won in 2018 at Carnoustie, right there when Tiger won in Augusta in 2019. And so I have a feeling, Zach, he's going to be the next guy to break through that wall and get that major, get the first major. If I had to pick a guy, if there's going to be a player to win a major for the first time this season, I think I'd go with Xander. Do you have any feelings on whether we might see something like that, or maybe even a Zalatoris, someone off the board, someone we haven't talked about yet?
I think it's going to be somebody we haven't talked about yet. I think that Schauffele's in his own head. I think he's battling with his father being too much of an influence and not, and when to rein that in and when not to. He plays very, very slowly too, which when you're in a Sunday and you're in contention and you're taking too much time and you haven't won that major, there's a difference between pre-shot routine and mental flesh. And I think that he bordered more on the line of that mental anguish towards the end Sunday. I think he found a really significant stretch where he was hot and Matsuyama was not. But then I think he tried to just go for that home run. And for as much experience as a guy of his pedigree has, although maybe not as much recent success as he would like, I think that was a very foolish decision to go for the gusto there when you brought it back, you brought it to within respectability where Matsuyama was going to have to earn it. And you're almost dealing with house money, similar resumes in some respects, in some circles. Of course, Schauffele was a tour champion among his many accomplishments. He won at Greenbrier, his first PGA Tour win, tugs at your heartstrings, Matt. But beyond that, I think that the resume and the success in professional competition was very comparable. And I think he just tried to force it. And I think if he had a do-over, I think he would have just played it to the middle of the green, take his chances with par, and hope that Matsuyama implodes, because that was the golf tournament, really. Matsuyama wasn't going to necessarily make a big mistake. At that point, he just has to par out and not make a mistake. And the green jacket is his, which it sure ended up being. But Schauffele has to learn from these lessons. And time again, he's come close. And obviously, we've talked about guys that have been the bridesmaid and not the bride, like Phil Mickelson, who, of course, pulled through in 2004 in a big way at the same Augusta National Golf Club. But the point is that for me, it's just how much is too much? How many people can Schauffele let in, and how much does he just have to trust his own instincts? Because the closer you get, the more times it's going, and you don't get through, then it's going to eventually wear on you. And sometimes it's not what is the guy doing, it's what am I doing wrong? And there's also a fine line in today's golf where you have to assess that you can't beat yourself up over it. I'm not sure that Xander Schauffele's ready to make that jump yet, but it remains to be seen. Maybe he's able to turn the clock, and on a Sunday he'll surprise me. And I sure hope he does, because by all accounts, seems like he's a good guy. I've had the pleasure of talking to him on one occasion, and he was a very generous guy with his time. And of course, his dad was right there to set the interview up. So I think for Schauffele, he needs to, true story, third party. But Schauffele needs to be a guy that takes the reins of his own game, takes accountability for his own game, and just executes and keeps it simple.
Well, from the most traditional tournament on tour, or really around the world outside of the Open Championship, to one of the new age events, the Zurich Classic. And in case you didn't know, it's in Louisiana, TPC Louisiana. In fact, not technically New Orleans, although they try to tie the city into the identity of that event, but in the vein of New Orleans and its atmosphere down there, the party-like atmosphere. It's a much looser tournament than most. First of all, it's a team event, Zach. You have two-man teams playing. Just this past weekend, you saw the Aussies, Cameron Smith, mullet in tow, and Mark Leishman prevailing in a playoff against the South Africans, Louis Oosthuizen and Charles Schwartzel. They go alternating days with the formats. They start with alternate shot, then they do better ball, or probably they start with better ball on Thursday, alternate shot on Friday, and then they repeat the pattern again over the weekend. They also have walk-up music for the first tee, which I enjoy. So, yeah, they're trying to give this tournament an identity that's separate from most on tour. I think they've succeeded, although it hasn't been a huge ratings hit. And honestly, this part of the schedule is pretty tough to get people's attention with baseball starting, with hockey and basketball peaking, and also the fact we're between majors. It's a couple weeks before the PGA Championship and a couple weeks after the Masters. So in that line of thinking, Zach, I think that the Zurich Classic can even take it a little bit further. First of all, I think they could just get rid of better ball. If you're just playing your own ball, how is that much different from what you see on the PGA Tour week in and week out? It's a lot of stroke play, metal play type stuff. I think alternate shot for 4 days, or even 3 days if you want to shorten it up, would be great, and would also provide more drama, take out that safety net, and let these guys really try to bail each other out, or in a lot of cases put their teammate, their partner, in a bind. So that's what's fun about it. You get to see the give and take there with different players attacking a hole at the same time, basically playing the same ball. Also, though, I would think about, and this isn't an original idea for me, but I would definitely think about, if I were to the Zurich Classic and the PGA Tour, inviting some of the top LPGA Tour pros to give it a crossover appeal. You're already taking a chance and doing some different things, so why not bring in some of the top ladies and make it an event that just might move the needle for some folks who don't watch a lot of pro golf?
Well, let's not bury the lead, Matt. What would your walk-up song be if you were playing in one of these events?
Maybe something by Metallica. I think something that hits right away. I Disappear, or Spit Out the Bones, something like that. I was just listening to that this afternoon.
I was picturing you as a fuel guy, so as a give me fuel, give me fire.
Yeah, right. That's right up there too. Something that really hits from the start. That's always been my philosophy for baseball walk-up music, if I had a track for that.
I mean, I could easily see myself going Enter Sandman on that. I think we might have a teaser on that for a future video or two. But I think in a similar vein, I'm going to go Closing Time by Semisonic, because the minute I step on that tee, it's closing time. This is my tournament. This is our team's tournament. And we're about to whoop the field. So
not bad.
We're going to set the tone, and we're going to create a home course advantage the minute we step on that first tee. So that's the plan on that. Honestly, anything to spice it up. Honestly, there comes a time where how gimmicky is too gimmicky, because, mind you, we did have the Wendy's 3 Club Tour growing up, where you had the Champions Tour, you had the PGA Tour, and you had the LPGA Tour. And that's kind of around that fall time where they were looking for something gimmicky to put on television, something that, whether it was mixed teams or the PGA goes against the LPGA and the Champions Tour, and you adjust the tees so they're hitting comparably distance-wise, and then take it from there. I would be all for having, if you'd be able to get a legend, like I'm sure a Gary Player or somebody like that would want to tee it up with these guys. Someone like a Tom Watson would be willing to tee it up with these guys. Even bring Steve Stricker. He can have a little bit of Ryder Cup fun while he's teeing it up with those guys, and do something like that where you're not just necessarily getting the Champions Tour player, but you're getting a legend. Or even have Annika Sorenstam, who's teed it up with the gentleman before, Michelle Wee West, who has done the exact same thing, and bring it that respect. Or you can have gimmicky teams like what you and I talked about on the way to the golf today, and have somebody like Team Loudmouth, have Pat Perez and have Christina Kim. Two people that can golf their ball, but also are going to have fun on the course and kind of have maybe the same approach I do. Maybe not in terms of getting the ball in the hole, but at least in terms of having some fun out there and making light of some things that are going on around the course, even if you're taking 20 minutes on a hole. But besides that point, there's another shout out to us, Matt. But regardless to that, just something gimmicky. The other problem is given the tough time of the year, you have this field without necessarily having some of the biggest names in the field. So how can you entice that? And I think that kind of dovetails into our third point, which we'll get to very soon in terms of our third shot. Maybe you can incorporate something along those lines where maybe if you offer some more money, there's incentive. But obviously you have a major championship in the PGA Championship coming up around the corner here soon, which obviously means that we're heading into the month of May, which means the US Open is around the corner as well. And then you also have the Olympics coming up, provided COVID allows for it too. And you have some golfers, namely Dustin Johnson, leading the way among others, that are not interested in pursuing that. And obviously you had the whole Zika episode, 5 years now, which is ridiculous that the Olympics has been 5 years, but this is the nature of COVID. So tour schedulers are in a very tough debacle right now, trying to find players to commit to events regardless of what the format is. So it's a tough deal trying to spice it up. And mind you, here we are this week at Valspar. We're back in Florida after there's already been a Florida swing. So it's difficult getting golfers to commit. Mind you, the Valspar was not played at all last year due to the pandemic at all either. So it's really interesting, and I don't envy these promoters who are trying to be, and these organizers that are trying to be creative and attract some of the big names. And these big names to realize that the tournaments they come in have to be fewer and far between. They have to be more selective, and they're trying to find a happy medium to please everybody. And it's 2021. You just can't darn please anybody anymore with golf half the time. Why are you not committed to this? Why are you not committed to that? And the closest sign we have of Tiger now is a picture of him with his dog, and he's on crutches, which is a good sign that he's feeling better, but it also is a sign that he's not coming back anytime soon either, unfortunately. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out, and if the PGA Tour is willing to embrace more of this 21st century stuff and be more willing to take chances and risks with their tournaments instead of playing at yet another TPC course.
Well, hey, you brought up Tiger Woods, so that dovetails nicely into our third shot on the par 4, which involves the tour teaming up with some of its top players to give a bonus to the guys who help move the needle the most, to use the cliche. But in this case, it seems like, Zach, a two-part thing. Number one, a response to the Premier Golf Tour, which has been rumored to be starting, funded by Saudi Arabia, a shakeout that way. A lot of money coming from overseas, basically. Threatening to be a competitive tour, competition to the PGA and to the European Tour, mostly to the PGA Tour, by ensuring that the players on this supposed tour would earn a guaranteed payday, as opposed to on the PGA Tour where you have to make the cut. But also, it just seems like this is more of a modern nod to the fact that the tour's product is very different compared to other sports leagues. Whereas, you know that LeBron James is going to play 82 times a season, barring injury. Sidney Crosby the same way. Mike Trout, 162 games or close to it in baseball. In football, Tom Brady 16 times a year and probably a couple more in the playoffs. On the PGA Tour, the top players pick and choose, and it's their right. That's how the organization is set up, but it's a different culture. But at the same time, it's hard to argue that these top players don't deserve more of the pot, or at least that's been the argument from a lot of folks who've been following the PGA Tour, as compared to those who maybe collect based on their finish in the tournaments, but not necessarily because of who they bring in and the ratings they garner, the social media impressions that follow them as well whenever they're playing. So it's been really an interesting week for me parsing over this and trying to figure out whether I like it or I don't like it. But anyway, the PGA Tour has started something called the Player Impact Program, which will hand out, let me find the amount here, a total of $40 million to the top 10 players on a metric they're going to make up themselves. A little bit worrisome there, but the metric is going to be a combination of players' popularity on Google search, their Nielsen brand exposure rating, which obviously comes from an outside entity, and Nielsen, their Q rating, another outside entity, the MVP index rating, no idea what that is, but it's a combination of social and digital channels and a player's exposure, and also the number of times a player is either mentioned or covered on traditional media platforms like television. So, yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling to figure out how they're going to put a solid, tangible number on this and divvy up this extra cash. I do like the idea, although it's kind of interesting to think about. Is it a self-fulfilling prophecy at times where if you're on TV a lot to begin with, you're just by inertia going to be on TV a lot, like a Ricky Fowler who hasn't played very much recently, near the top of the leaderboard. He's missing a lot of cuts. But you know what? When he's on a televised event, when he's playing in a televised event, they're going to show a good bit of him because they know that people like to watch him because maybe they've watched him in the past. So it all seems a little cloudy for me. But even if I don't necessarily buy into the entirety of it, I do understand where they're coming from. How about you? Do you think the concept is at least sound here to give the guys who bring in the money a little bit more of the cut?
I thought we got rid of the BCS.
It sounds like it, doesn't it? It's tough.
I mean, in this days of NFTs, is this just the biggest participation trophy we've ever seen? I mean, for God's sakes, Matt. I mean, Ricky Fowler is the 111th ranked golfer in the world right now. And you're looking at the fact that because of what he's going to be wearing from the Puma scripting line to the PGA Championship that he has no business being in, he's probably going to be in the top 10% because he wears orange, because he moves the needle with the young kids and the female audience. He's going to get more money. What happened to just going on the golf course, working your ass off, and just doing it the old-fashioned way? So just because John Catlin, who also got a special exemption for the PGA Championship, yet he's won 2 European Tour events in the last year at least, maybe 3. If it's either 2 or 3, he earned it. He earned a special exemption. What has Ricky Fowler done in the last year or two that's made this whole thing worthwhile? But because he's popular and because he's been on past performance where he's been top 5 in majors several years ago, because he's been on Ryder Cup and President's Cup teams, all of a sudden they're equal golfers right now, where Catlin has a much better chance of making the cut on the course. I don't care what American course experience he's had in the last 12 to 18 months, and Ricky Fowler's had it 12 to 18 months, and he's the new Jordan Spieth right now. I mean, if Jordan Spieth were struggling, he'd be in the top 10 as well right now too, because all the media would be talking about his struggles. He's Under Armour. He's got his own line of hats. He is a very popular golfer still. I mean, come on now. I mean, hell, Tiger Woods isn't even on the golf course, and you already know he's going to make the broadcast. You already know they're going to show tweets and pictures of him. The media is going to have at least 2 or 3 articles mainstream per tournament, whether he's on the grounds or not. So Tiger Woods not even playing the course. Does that mean he's going to qualify for the bonus too? And this list just seems so facetious, this whole thing. I mean, like you, I get the idea, but I don't think the intent is quite there yet. It's too many outside factors. Nielsen needs to stick with television and movies. I mean, figuring out what golfer is the top 10 based on a Nielsen index? Are you freaking kidding me? There's got to be some kind of advanced metrics. What are they going to do next? The top 10 golfers they bet on DraftKings to determine who gets a bonus? I mean, my God. I mean, this whole list just seems like this big run-on sentence, and it's too much. I mean, I get putting the game in the 21st century. I am 100% about that. But it seems like this one just isn't fully there. It's not well thought, and they're instituting it in the middle of a golf season where maybe you should spend this season with your committee, with your PAC, your advisory boards, and everybody else, make the decision. And then once the off season happens, even in a December, when the President's Cup and the Olympics have been played and there's been actual time to think about this where golfers are not distracted with the season, maybe you all meet with Jay Monahan and all the other necessary dignitaries and you come up with some system that everybody agrees to that makes sense, because the intent is there, but I think it suffers for that working man golfer that's struggling to get special exemptions, and now maybe a golfer is going to get an exemption because he's more popular. Maybe he hasn't necessarily earned it based on merit the last 12 to 18 months. So I get it. There's a fine line, but it doesn't mean I have to like it.
there's the counter argument that that's what the money is for when you talk about the where do you finish on the leaderboard, and I get that, but I also understand that it's entertainment and it's not just about results. It's also about getting people to pay attention to the sport. So there's something there. I'm not sure this is it, and I know this has been forced by the rise of the Premier Golf League, or at least the threat of the rise of the PGL, or whatever you want to term it there. So it's not just out of the kindness of their hearts at PGA Tour headquarters down there in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, that they're doing this. But at the same time, I like the fact that they're reaching across and saying, hey, we understand that there are certain guys that will help fans turn out both live and in person once we do get back to fuller crowds, and also make people turn their channels over to watch the golf. And like you mentioned, Tiger Woods, he plays, he's going to be in there. So I have a feeling he would be near the top of this PIP index. And I think Bryson DeChambeau as well is rubbing his hands together. The guy who has a way of garnering attention, whether on social media or through traditional channels. All right, speaking of drawing attention, Zach, we put this one off from last week, but our last time around on the par 4. But I want to double back to it. And I know that folks not only watch golf, but also here on Pittsburgh Golf Now, we talk a great bit about the local golf scene, which ties into people's individual games and their goals for this season. I posted a couple of times on Pittsburgh Golf Now about my resolutions for the new year, first of all, and we got some folks, some people who write for us, including yourself, Zach, to chime in there too. And then a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that I wanted to shoot 3 scratch caliber rounds before the official start of summer. So throwing the gauntlet down and trying to establish some tangible benchmarks and force myself to be accountable to them, because that's always the problem for me is I'll set a goal and then I'll say, well, maybe that's a little too hard. Maybe I'll drop it down, then I'll forget about it. So I think a spoken goal is more powerful and maybe in some ways more attainable because you do put it out there into the universe. So for me, I already mentioned the idea of wanting to shoot even par a few times here, but also I want to, here's a tangible number as well. I just picked up this launch monitor, this mobile launch monitor from Rapsodo, free plug here. I'm going to do a review on it for Pittsburgh Golf Now, but it measures a lot of things when you hit a ball, including swing speed. And my average driver swing speed is about 110. I've heard through some focus programs you can boost it by 10 or 15 in fairly quick fashion. Wouldn't take the whole year, might take part of the summer, but I want to get my max swing speed up to 125 because swing speed correlates very closely with handicap. Swing speed always, not always, but most of the time means more control as well, and generally more skill. So that's where I'm going to go for. I'm going to try to get bigger, stronger, faster. Maybe not quite as big as DeChambeau, but I definitely want to swing the club faster and gain the dividends that come from that. So I'm putting that on the table. That's my goal for this golf season, to boost that swing speed upward. What do you think? What are you putting out there, whether it's about results or if it's about playing different courses? How do you feel about where you want to go with the 21 golf season?
I think today really shined a light for me in terms of I had ideas for what my goals are going to be, and I'm thinking that I need to revisit those. And I think that's a good thing. And setting goals doesn't necessarily have to be a set in stone thing. If you have something in the moment that you maybe feel that you're lacking on, maybe you change your goal and make it a little bit more short term. And I don't think there's necessarily any problem regarding that. For me, getting to play new courses and having that opportunity is something that I think I should value, because if I'm going to be a member of the site, then I feel that I need to be able to put more places a fair shake. And I have my tried and trues, but just having a couple tried and trues isn't necessarily going to be the end all be all. There's so many different courses that have so many different personalities, and goodness gracious, I have a life. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to anywhere near as many as I'd like to, but being able to do that, I think having having a better short-term memory on my end where I'm not agonizing over every shot. And you know what? Let's have fun. Golf is going to be fun, and let's just enjoy the shots. So let's forget the fact that my club probably just went further than my drive just did, because I think that happened a couple times today. But regardless of that, I mean, maintaining a positive attitude about it and realizing, you know what? Normally I like playing with people. Let's have some fun. If I suck, great. If I'm good, great. That's fine too. I mean, it's all about just being in the moment. And if I have any issues with my game than not necessarily agonizing and sweating the small stuff and just enjoying the company that I'm with, enjoying the challenge that the course provides, and not to get necessarily as down on myself, because it's really easy for me to get down on myself, especially with my off the tee game, which, spoiler alert, it sucked again today. But we'll let that cat out of the bag. We have something in the works on that, but it's mainly sometimes lessons aren't affordable for the average person. It's not necessarily easy, and you can watch film and you can watch so many different swings, and you see so much somebody else's swing, and you instantly feel like an armchair quarterback where, oh, there's no way, I don't see it, and then you see yours, and you're just so marinated in your process that it's just a stubborn thing. It's not so easy when it's you. So as a golfer that is very much a beginner, it's that. I'd also would like to get less frustrated with slow play. If there's one thing I cannot stand on a golf, if there's one thing I cannot stand on a golf course, and I will let you know on Twitter about it, it is slow play. For me, I suck. So if it takes me an extra minute over my shot, it's not going to make any difference. For me, it's just in my head thinking about a shot that I'm going to hit, committing to my line, and you know what? If I miss the shot, oh well, I missed the shot. If I make the shot, you know what? That's a bonus, and we'll take that. And I'll be happy, and then I'll move on to the next shot, and I'll go through the same thing and try to stay more consistent with that mindset and that mental approach. And really, I think those are all attainable from a physical standpoint. I'm not where I want to be physically right now. I think that will also be very clear with my piano swing and my rubber band swing off the tee today. But regardless of that, I think I'm very, very happy with where my short game is at right now. I feel very comfortable with that. I think from 100 yards and in, I'm feeling comfortable. It's just getting the rest of the game towards a confident level and turning weaknesses into that strength that I feel that it can be. And it'll take time. It's not going to happen in one round. It may not happen in 20 rounds, but I'm hopeful that the little gains that I do get, I enjoy and I treasure. And I have enough shots that every time I play, it'll make me want to come back, because we love nothing more than to brutally beat ourselves up over 4.5 hours or 4 hours of golf and then come back for more and do it all over again. So I love doing it with company. It was great playing 18 with yourself, with Jordan, with Hunter today. And a huge thank you to everybody there at Murraysville for setting it up, for you for being a +1 with me, Matt, and Team Fuchsia today. And thanks, of course, to Hunter and Jordan. And, of course, thanks to Appalachian for just being an easy app to use and just being a great opportunity to set tee times and for courses and maybe new golfers to intermingle. And there's not necessarily as much of a middleman. It's just an opportunity to connect, and it's just a good opportunity for everybody to go out there. So good chance to achieve the goals, short or long term, whatever they may be, and find a chance to achieve success.
I love your thoughts on having fun, and easier said than done. But in the words of Crash Davis and Bull Durham, it's supposed to be fun. Fun, damn it! It's a game, right? And we can lose sight of it because we want to perform. And I think for me, Zach, part of the reason why frustration can creep in is that you build up the round in your head. You're excited to go out there, and you just really want to perform well, whether it be in front of your friends or playing by yourself. There's a certain standard that you have, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with feeling some anxiety, some anger over it. But if you let it overwhelm you and you ruin your time out there on the golf course, then what are you even doing? So it's got to be a balance for sure. You have to figure out what's the right level of intensity and what's the right level of just letting it go and figuring out when to, as you say, put the last shot behind you and move forward. That's why we love golf. It's a good metaphor for life in that way. And a lot of times our personalities in life also carry over very closely to the golf course. It reveals character, I suppose, would be the line that I've heard. Not so much that it builds it. Zach, always fun to play golf with you. And like you mentioned, we had a nice foursome today, and you'll see more of that on the Appalachian Golf Alliance, a sister network to us here at Pittsburgh Golf Now. But also great talking golf with you. And we'll get back together right around the PGA Championship, which is back in May, back as the second major of the year, back as the way it was intended after the switch was made for 2019. So anticipating the return to Kiowa Island. The last time Rory McIlroy won a major was there in 2014. I wouldn't call him a favorite, but that'll be one of the stories for sure as we head forward into it. Interesting course, interesting place, and one that is rife with golf history, even if it may not be one of those traditional courses that get so much praise and love from the so-called purists. So we'll look forward to that. That's probably about the next time we'll talk to you here on the PGN Par 4. Until then, take a look at our website, Pittsburgh Golf Now. Reviews. I've got a review coming up of a local facility right in the city that is outstanding. Can't wait to write that one up. Mike Darnay with a big assist from the photography standpoint too. And also, you will see further course reviews as well as we get back out there on the links and take a look. One of my goals as well, which I neglected to mention earlier, was to at least play one new course a month. I want to get away from the old haunts and see some new sites. So Pittsburgh Golf Now helps me with that. For Zac Weiss, this has been Matt Gajtka saying good night. Thank you for watching. If you did live or on the archive, check us out on Pittsburgh Sports Live as well. That's where you can find all of our Pittsburgh Golf Now Par 4 videos from the past almost full year that we've been in effect. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.